I'm going to tell you about something that happened when I was 19. I don't talk about it in real life, because every time I do, people either laugh, or they get that look like they're trying to figure out if I'm lying. I'm not. And I wish I was. Back then, I lived with my mom in a small apartment over an old tailor shop. The place always smelled like fabric dust and warm metal, like an iron left on too long. Our hallway light flickered constantly, so at night the corridor looked like it was breathing. My mom worked double shifts at a nursing home. I was going to community college, but I also had this part-time job delivering food. I'd get home late, usually after midnight, and the building would be silent except for the pipes clicking inside the walls. The first weird thing happened on a Tuesday. I came home around 1:20 a.m., and as I turned my key in the lock, I noticed something thin and bright against the dark carpet. A piece of red thread. It was coming from under my door, like someone had slid it through the crack. It didn't look random either. It was neatly placed, straight, like it had been measured. I bent down and tugged it gently. It didn't budge. I pulled a little harder. Still nothing, like it was tied to something heavy on the other side. I remember my stomach tightening because it made no sense. If it was inside the apartment, then it was under the door from the inside. But I was locked out. No one should have been inside. I stopped pulling and just stared at it. Then, very faintly, I heard a sound from the hallway behind me. A soft shuffling. Like bare feet dragging on carpet. I spun around, heart pounding, expecting to see a neighbor. The hallway was empty. No doors opening. No elevator ding. Just the flickering light and the stale air. I looked back at the red thread and didn't touch it again. I unlocked the door quickly, pushed it open, and stepped inside. The thread was still there. But now I could see what it was tied to. A small bundle of something wrapped in cloth, pressed right up against the door. The cloth was stained dark in patches, like old rust. I didn't want to pick it up, but I forced myself to. As soon as I lifted it, a smell hit me, sharp and sour, like spoiled meat. I threw it into the sink and stared at it like it might move on its own. Then I saw what the cloth was wrapped around. A dead bird. Small, maybe a sparrow. Its neck looked twisted, and its eyes were gone. Like they had been poked out. I just stood there, frozen, my skin prickling all over. I called my mom, but she didn't answer. So I did the next dumb thing. I unwrapped it more, thinking maybe it was a prank. Under the bird was something else. A little pouch tied with more red thread. When I opened the pouch, a bunch of hair spilled out into the sink. Human hair. Dark, thick strands. And mixed in with it were small, white pieces that clicked against the metal basin. Teeth. Not big teeth. Not like adult teeth. Small teeth, like from a child. I slammed the pouch shut and backed away so fast I hit the fridge. I couldn't breathe right. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. I grabbed a plastic bag, scooped everything up without touching it directly, and tied it tight. I put it in another bag, then a third. I didn't know what else to do. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that bird, and those little teeth tapping against the sink. Around 3 a.m. I heard my door handle jiggle. Just once. A careful, slow movement. Like someone testing it. I sat up in bed and held my breath. A few seconds passed. Then the handle moved again. This time, it turned further, like someone had a key and was trying to fit it. But the door didn't open. I stared at my bedroom doorway, waiting for footsteps, for voices, anything. Instead, I heard something much worse. A whisper. Right outside my door, in the hallway. It wasn't loud, but it was close. Close enough that I could hear the wet sound of someone's lips moving. I couldn't make out the words at first, but it kept going, steady, calm, like a prayer. Then the whisper stopped. And the hallway went quiet. The next morning, I took the bag downstairs and threw it in the dumpster behind the building. I didn't tell my mom everything because she was already stressed, and I didn't want to sound crazy. But later that day, she came home early. She was pale, eyes wide, like she'd seen something she couldn't explain. "Did you do something with the neighbors?" she asked. I stared at her. "What?" She put her purse down slowly. "One of the nurses told me something. About black magic." My stomach dropped. My mom wasn't the type to talk about stuff like that. She didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in curses. She believed in hard work and paying bills. But her voice was shaking. She told me one of the older patients at the nursing home, an immigrant woman, had asked my mom for her full name and date of birth. My mom thought she was just making conversation, so she answered. Later, another nurse overheard and warned her. "Don't give her that," the nurse said. "She's known for doing things." Apparently, there were rumors that the old woman had helped people by putting curses on others. She had family who visited, and they brought strange items, bundles, jars, threads. My mom laughed it off, until that nurse described something. Red thread. I felt cold all over. We didn't know what to do. We didn't have money to move, and calling the police felt pointless. What were we going to say? Someone put a dead bird and teeth under our door with a red string, so we tried to ignore it. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, on the 4th night, my mom woke up screaming. I ran into her room and found her sitting upright, clutching her chest, eyes wild. "I had a dream," she gasped. "I was in the nursing home basement. And someone was calling my name." She kept saying it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like she was really there. Then she said something that made my throat go tight. "In the dream, there was a woman in the dark. And she had your hair." I stared at her. "My hair?" My mom nodded, tears in her eyes. "She was wrapping it around her fingers. And she said I'll take what I'm owed." That same day, my mom's patient, the old woman, died. Not peacefully. She choked on something in her throat and panicked. Nurses tried to help her, but it happened fast. By the time my mom got to the room, the woman was already gone. And my mom said something else. Right before the old woman died, she grabbed my mom's wrist so hard it left bruises. And she whispered, "You threw it away." My mom didn't understand at the time. But I did. Because I was the one who threw the bundle away. That night, I went to the dumpster behind the building. I don't know why. I just felt pulled to it. Like if I didn't go, something worse would happen. The alley was quiet. The streetlight buzzed overhead. I lifted the dumpster lid, bracing for the smell. Inside I saw the bag. But it wasn't where I left it. It was sitting right on top of the trash, centered like someone placed it there neatly. And the red thread was no longer inside. It was outside the bag now. Wrapped around it tight. I didn't touch it. I backed away, and that's when I noticed something on the wall behind the dumpster. A symbol scratched into the brick. I can't describe it perfectly, but it looked like a crooked star mixed with an eye. It was fresh. The brick dust was still around it. My mouth went dry. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, I heard that same whispering again. Not from the hallway this time. From the alley. Behind me. I turned so fast my neck hurt. Nothing. But the whispering continued, like it was coming from everywhere at once. I ran inside, locked the door, and pushed a chair under the handle like that would help. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my mom told me she was going to take a day off. She looked exhausted, like her face had aged overnight. Around noon, someone knocked at our door. When I opened it, a woman stood there, maybe in her 30s, wearing a plain coat. She held a small box in her hands. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm looking for your mother." My heart started pounding. "Why?" The woman hesitated. "I'm her patient's granddaughter." My stomach flipped. She looked down at the box. "My grandmother passed. And before she did, she told me to bring this to the one who broke the thread." I didn't want to take it. Everything in my body screamed not to. But my mom appeared behind me, and when the granddaughter saw her, her eyes went strange, like she was suddenly afraid of my mom. She held the box out anyway. My mom took it with shaking hands. The granddaughter leaned in and whispered, "If you don't finish what she started, it won't stop." Then she turned and walked away fast. We brought the box inside and opened it on the kitchen table. Inside was a small glass jar. The jar was filled with cloudy liquid, and floating inside it was a strip of paper, rolled up. There was also a tiny bundle of red thread, and a lock of hair. My mom's hair. We just stared. My mom started crying and saying she never asked for any of this, she never wanted to hurt anyone. Then we unrolled the paper. It was written in messy handwriting. Not English. Something else. A language neither of us understood. But there was one thing we did understand. Our names. Both of them. Full names. And under our names were dates. Not birthdays. They were future dates. I won't tell you the exact dates, but I'll tell you this. One of the dates was only 3 weeks away. My mom couldn't breathe right. She kept saying, "That's not real. That's not real." That night, she insisted we go to a priest. We weren't even religious, but we didn't know where else to go. The priest listened quietly and told us not to open the jar again. He told us to bring it to him the next day so he could dispose of it properly. We wrapped the jar in towels, put it in a bag, and kept it in the closet. That night, the whispering came back. But it wasn't outside. It was inside the apartment. It moved through the rooms like a slow breeze, brushing past doorways. Sometimes it sounded like it was in the kitchen. Sometimes behind the bathroom door. And at 2:17 a.m., I heard something that made my blood run cold. My mom's voice. Calling my name from the living room. "Come here," it said, soft and tired. I sat up in bed, confused. "Mom?" Silence. Then her voice again, closer. "Please. Come here." I got up, walked to my bedroom door, and opened it. The apartment was dark. And my mom was standing at the far end of the hallway, facing me. Except, it wasn't really her. Because she wasn't moving like a person. She was too still. And her head was tilted slightly, like a broken doll. I whispered, "Mom!" She didn't answer. But she smiled. A wide, stiff smile that didn't fit her face. And behind her, in the living room, I could see the closet door was open. The closet where we'd put the jar. I stepped back and slammed my bedroom door shut, locking it, hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the lock. I heard soft footsteps outside my door, dragging, bare feet on carpet. And then the whispering returned, right on the other side of the wood. Over and over, like a chant. You broke the thread, you broke the thread, you broke the thread. The next morning, we took the jar to the priest. He didn't look surprised. He took one look at it and said quietly, "You need to leave that apartment." My mom asked him what the paper said. He didn't answer directly. He just said, "It's a claim." Then he told us to sit in the church while he went to prepare. We waited for almost an hour. Then a man came out of the back room, pale and sweating, and told us the priest had collapsed. They said it was a heart attack. He died before the ambulance even arrived. And when the paramedics carried him out, I saw something in his hand. A thin, red thread, wrapped around his fingers. We moved out that week. We left most of our stuff behind. But here's the part that still messes with my head. When we were packing, I found something in my mom's coat pocket. A tiny bundle of red thread. Fresh. Neatly tied. Like someone had placed it there. And a small strip of paper tucked inside it, with a date written in shaky handwriting. A new date. A date in the future. And every few years, when life finally feels normal again, I find another red thread. In a drawer. Under my bed. Inside a pocket. Always clean. Always new. Like whatever started back then never really ended. It just learned how to wait. I used to rent a room in a crowded house on the edge of town. It was one of those old places that had been cut up into tiny bedrooms, with cheap locks and thin walls. You could hear everything. People arguing on the phone. People coughing. Someone's music vibrating the floor at 3 a.m. Most of the tenants kept to themselves, but the one person everybody talked about was the woman in room 6. Her name was Lena. At least, that's what the landlord called her. Nobody saw her much. She didn't work. She didn't have visitors. But at night you'd hear her. Not partying. Not TV. Just movement. Soft shuffling, like she walked back and forth in her room for hours. And sometimes, late at night, you'd hear her whispering through the wall. Not crying. Not praying. Just whispering, steady and calm, like she was reading something out loud to someone who wasn't there. The first time I met her was in the kitchen. It was about 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep, so I went to make tea. The kitchen light was flickering, and the sink had a slow drip that echoed in the silence. When I walked in, she was already there. Standing completely still in front of the sink. She didn't even turn her head when I entered. I cleared my throat, trying not to sound nervous. "Hey!" Slowly she turned. And I swear, it felt like the room got colder. Her eyes were wide and shiny, like she hadn't blinked in a long time. Her hair was loose and messy. And her lips looked stained, like she'd been chewing something dark. She stared at me for a second too long, then smiled. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, but there was something strange in it, like she was smiling too hard. I nodded. "Yeah. Just making tea." She looked down at my hands, then at my face again. "You're new. Been here a month." She tilted her head slightly. "You should lock your door." I laughed awkwardly. "I do." Her smile faded. "Not enough." Then she turned back to the sink and started washing her hands slowly, like she was scrubbing something invisible off her skin. The water ran red for a second. I thought I imagined it, but I froze and watched. The water swirled down the drain, leaving a faint pink stain in the basin. Lena looked over her shoulder and said, almost casually, "Sometimes the house holds on to people." I didn't answer. I grabbed my tea and went back to my room. That night, I dreamed I was standing in the hallway outside my door. I could hear whispering from under the cracks of the other doors, like every room had someone murmuring inside it. Then I looked down and saw red threads stretched across the carpet like spiderwebs. When I woke up, my throat was dry, and my sheets smelled faintly like smoke. The next day, one of the tenants, an older guy named Marco, pulled me aside outside. He lit a cigarette and said, "You talked to room 6 last night, didn't you?" I frowned. "How do you know?" He exhaled smoke, looking uncomfortable. "Because she does that. She talks to someone once, and then, weird stuff starts." I laughed, but it sounded forced. "Like what?" Marco looked away. "Like they start hearing her in their room." I wanted to brush it off, but that night, around 1:30 a.m., I heard it. A whisper. Not through the wall. From inside my room. It was faint, like someone standing behind my closet door, speaking softly. I sat up, listening. The whispering wasn't random. It had rhythm. Like a chant. I got out of bed and held my breath, trying to pinpoint the sound. It was coming from the corner near my door. I stared at the wall, and my skin prickled. Then the whispering stopped. And I heard a soft knock. One knock. On my door. I didn't move. Another knock, slower. Then a woman's voice, quiet and calm. "Open." It sounded like Lena. I whispered back. "What do you want?" Silence. Then, "I need something." I swallowed hard. "It's late." Her voice softened. "I know." I stepped closer to the door, shaking, and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No one was there. But her voice came again, right outside the wood. "I'm right here." I backed away and sat on my bed, heart pounding so hard it hurt. After that night, things in the house started changing. People started moving out suddenly. One tenant left in the middle of the night, dragging his suitcase down the stairs. Another stopped coming home at all. And Marco, the guy who warned me, started looking worse every day. His face was gray. His hands shook. He had these deep scratches on his arms like he'd been clawing himself in his sleep. I asked him if he was okay. He just stared at me and said, "She got my name." I frowned. "What?" Marco's eyes were watery. "She asked me my full name once. I told her. Like an idiot. And then she started calling me." He leaned closer and whispered, "She doesn't sleep because she's busy." I tried to move out, but money was tight, and the landlord didn't care about our complaints. He just kept saying Lena paid her rent on time and didn't cause trouble. But the trouble found us anyway. One night, I came home and smelled something awful in the hallway. Like rotten eggs mixed with burned hair. The smell got stronger near room 6. Her door was slightly open. Just a crack. And I could see darkness inside, like the light had been swallowed. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped closer and pushed the door gently with my fingertips. It opened wider with a slow creak. The room was lit by dozens of candles. The air was thick and hot, like a sauna. And the floor was covered in red thread. It crisscrossed everywhere, on the carpet, across the bed, around the chair legs, like someone had been weaving a giant web. In the center of the room was a bowl. Something was inside it. I stepped closer, fighting nausea. It was filled with black, muddy water, and floating in it were pieces of paper. Each paper had a name written on it. Dozens of names. Some crossed out. Some circled. And some were stuck together with something dark and sticky. Then I saw what that sticky thing was. Blood. I backed up, ready to run, but my foot caught on something. I looked down. A small bundle tied with thread. A dead rat. Its stomach was cut open, stuffed with hair. I gagged and stumbled out, slamming the door. As I turned, I saw Lena standing at the end of the hallway. Just standing there, barefoot, smiling. She didn't look surprised at all. She started walking toward me, slow and quiet. I backed away. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She stopped a few feet away, still smiling, and said, "You weren't supposed to look." My voice shook. "That's sick. That's—" She cut me off, her eyes wide and bright. "It's work." "What kind of work?" Lena tilted her head. "Work that ends things." My throat went tight. "Why?" Her smile faded just a little. "Because people take." I didn't understand what she meant until she said something that made my stomach sink. "Your landlord took my sister." I stared at her. "What?" She spoke softly, like she was explaining something simple. "He took her rent. He took her money. He took her, and when she came to him crying, he laughed." I remembered the landlord, this greasy middle-aged guy who always stood too close when he talked to women. Lena's eyes flicked to my door. "He's next." I swallowed. "You can't just—" Lena smiled again. "It's already started." That night, the landlord died. They said it was an accident. He fell down the basement stairs and snapped his neck. But the weird part was what the police found down there. They found red thread tied around the railing. Tied tight. Like something pulled. After the landlord's death, the house got even worse. The lights dimmed. The air felt heavy. People who stayed started having nightmares. And Lena started walking the halls more. Sometimes I'd wake up and hear her outside my door, whispering my name like she was tasting it. One morning, Marco didn't come out of his room. The smell was awful. Someone called the police. They broke his door down and found him lying on the floor. His eyes were open. His mouth was stuffed with hair. And wrapped around his neck was a neat loop of red thread. After that, I didn't care about money. I packed my bag and left. I didn't even tell anyone. I just walked out in the afternoon sun, feeling like I was escaping a burning building. A few weeks later, I heard the house burn down. Electrical fire, they said. Nobody was inside when it happened. Except, one firefighter told my coworker something strange. He said they found a room in the house that didn't burn like the others. Room 6. The walls were black, but the center of the floor was untouched. And right there, in the clean spot, was a bowl of muddy water. With a fresh piece of paper floating on top. A name written clearly in ink. My name. This one was told to me by my cousin, Adil. And I'm warning you right now, this story doesn't end with someone learning a lesson and moving on. It ends the way black magic stories usually end. With someone paying a price they didn't know they agreed to. Adil was always the type to chase what he wanted. If he liked a girl, he went for her. If someone told him no, he took it personally. In his mid-20s, he got obsessed with a woman named Sana. She worked at a salon near his office. She was pretty, polite, and she had a calm way of speaking that made people lean in to listen. Adil started going there every week, even when he didn't need a haircut. He'd bring coffee, small gifts, jokes. Sana stayed friendly, but she didn't encourage him. Eventually she told him, straight up, "Please stop coming here for me. I'm engaged." Adil laughed like he didn't believe her, but later he called me, furious. "She's lying," he said. "She's just playing hard to get." I told him to let it go. He didn't. A month later, he came to my place grinning like he'd won something. "I found someone," he said. I frowned. "Someone like a matchmaker?" He lowered his voice. "Someone who can make her want me." I felt my stomach drop. "What are you talking about?" He leaned closer. "A man. He does spiritual work." I knew what he meant right away. And I told him not to mess with that. But Adil just laughed. "It's not like the movies. It's just words. Prayers. Little things." Then he said something that still makes me angry to think about. "I just need her to look at me the way I look at her." 2 days later, he visited this spiritual worker. He described the guy as old, thin, with eyes that didn't blink much. His shop smelled like incense and damp earth. The man asked Adil for Sana's full name. Adil didn't know it, so he gave her first name and the salon address. The man shook his head and said, "Not enough." So Adil did something awful. He went to the salon, pretended to be filling out a customer form, and stole a paper with Sana's full name and phone number. Then he went back to the man. This time, the man smiled. He asked for something personal? Hair. Or nails. Or clothing. Adil went back to the salon again and took a comb from the trash after Sana used it. When he returned with it, the man looked pleased. He told Adil, "This will work fast. But love created this way is hunger, not peace." Adil didn't care. The man gave him a small cloth packet tied with red thread and told him to bury it under a tree near Sana's home. Adil did it that night. And after that, things started happening. Sana began calling Adil. At first it was small, asking why he hadn't come by, asking where he was. Adil was thrilled. He thought it worked. Then she started showing up near his office. By accident. She'd stare at him like she was trying to remember a dream. Adil told me, laughing, "See? I told you. She just needed a push." But I noticed something else. Sana didn't look happy. She looked tired. Her eyes were shadowed. Her skin looked pale, like she hadn't been sleeping. And whenever Adil wasn't right next to her, her face would twist into this confused, frightened look, like she didn't know why she was there. One day, I saw them together in a cafe. Sana was gripping Adil's wrist so tight her knuckles were white. She kept whispering, "Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave." Adil smiled like he was enjoying it. I wasn't. Because it didn't feel like love. It felt like a sickness. A few weeks later, Sana's fiancé died. Car accident, they said. Hit by a truck late at night. Everyone treated it like tragedy. But Sana didn't cry the way you'd expect. She just stared. And then she went to Adil's house the same night and refused to leave. Adil called me, confused but excited. She's here. She won't go home. He thought this was the universe choosing him. But the next part is what made me believe something dark was involved. Sana started doing strange things in Adil's home. She'd sit in corners and whisper to herself. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. and stand by the window, staring out like she was waiting for someone to come. And once, Adil woke up and found her in the kitchen, holding a knife, cutting her own hair off into the sink. When he asked her what she was doing, she said in a flat voice, "It's feeding." Adil laughed it off, but I could tell he was scared. Then he started getting sick. It began as headaches. Then nosebleeds. Then bruises that appeared on his arms and chest like fingerprints. He went to the doctor. Tests came back normal. The doctor told him it was stress. But Adil knew it wasn't. He called the spiritual worker again. The man answered calm, like he'd been expecting it. Adil told him Sana was acting strange, and he was feeling worse. The man said, "Of course." Adil snapped. "What do you mean, of course?" The man replied, "You asked for hunger? Hunger eats." Adil demanded to undo it. The man laughed softly and said, "You can't undo a deal once it's tasted blood." Adil went to the man's shop anyway, desperate. When he got there, the shop was closed. The windows were dark. But on the door, someone had tied a red thread in the shape of a loop. Adil touched it, and it snapped like it was brittle. That same night, Sana killed herself. She walked into traffic in front of Adil's house. Adil saw it happen from the porch. He ran out screaming. But when he reached her, she was already gone. And here's the part that makes my hands sweat when I think about it. Right before she died, Sana looked up at Adil. And she smiled. Not a loving smile. A satisfied smile. Like she was finally full. Adil fell apart after that. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He kept saying he could hear Sana's whispering in his walls at night. He started finding hair everywhere, in his bed, in his shoes, in his food. Then, one morning, he called me, crying. "I found the packet," he said. "The one I buried." He dug it up under the tree near Sana's home. The cloth was rotted, but the red thread was still bright. Inside was a mess of hair and something else. Adil's own photo. With his eyes scratched out. And next to it, a small piece of paper with writing on it. His name. And a date. A date 2 days away. He begged me to come over. When I got to his place, he looked like a different person. His face was sunken. His lips were cracked. He kept glancing at corners like he expected someone to be standing there. That night I stayed with him. Around 3 a.m., we heard the whispering. Not from the walls. From the living room. We stepped out slowly and saw Sana standing by the window. I swear to you, standing there. Her hair was shorter, uneven like it had been cut in the sink. Her face was pale. Her mouth moved, whispering something we couldn't understand. Adil started sobbing. "Sana! I'm sorry!" She turned her head slowly toward him and smiled. Then she raised her hand and pointed at Adil's chest. Adil gasped like he'd been punched. He grabbed his chest, eyes wide. He collapsed. I ran to him, screaming his name, trying to help, but his body was stiffening, his eyes rolling back. I called an ambulance, but by the time they arrived, he was dead. They called it sudden cardiac arrest. No reason. No warning. Just gone. And when the paramedics lifted his shirt to place the pads, one of them froze. because on Adil's chest were bruises. Dark, clear bruises. In the shape of a handprint. 5 fingers. Like someone had gripped his heart from the outside. After the funeral, I couldn't stop thinking about that man, the spiritual worker. I went to the address Adil described. There was no shop. Just an empty unit with a "For Rent" sign. And taped to the inside of the glass was a piece of paper. A single red thread was pinned across it. And written on the paper were 4 words, in neat handwriting. Hunger does not end. I saved this one for last because it's the one that still gets whispered about in my family. It happened in a rural area, where people don't call it black magic, like it's some scary movie thing. They talk about it like weather. Like something that happens. A girl named Hira was supposed to get married. She was sweet, quiet, the kind of person who smiled with her eyes. Her fiancé, Bilal, was from a nearby town. He seemed normal, polite, respectful. Their engagement had been smooth, and everyone was excited. But there was one problem. Bilal's ex. Her name was Farah, and she didn't take the breakup well. People said she had begged Bilal to come back. When he didn't, she started showing up near his house, standing outside his gate at night. Then she disappeared from town for a few months. And that's when the strange stuff began. A week before the wedding, Hira started complaining about nightmares. In the dreams, she'd be sitting in the bridal chair, wearing the dress, while someone braided her hair from behind. But when she tried to turn and see who it was, her neck wouldn't move. Then the voice behind her would whisper, "He's not yours." Hira's mother thought it was stress. But Hira's grandmother didn't. She told them, "Someone has tied a knot." The grandmother insisted they do a simple protection ritual, salt at the doorway, prayers, keeping iron near the bed. Hira laughed nervously, but she did it, just to make her grandmother calm down. 2 days later, the salt at the doorway turned black. Not dirty. Black. Like burnt. And the iron spoon they left under Hira's pillow was bent. Nobody could explain that. Then Hira started getting sick. Not flu sick. Different. She'd wake up with scratches on her legs like she'd been dragged. She'd find wet footprints on her bedroom floor, small, barefoot footprints leading from the window to her bed. And she began smelling something rotten that nobody else could smell. She told her sister, "It's like something dead is inside my hair." The day before the wedding, Hira disappeared for almost an hour. They found her sitting behind the house near the water pump, staring at the ground. Her dress was dusty. Her hands were muddy. Her mother ran to her. "Hira! What are you doing?" Hira turned slowly and said, in a flat voice, "I buried it." They asked her what she meant. She blinked like she'd just woken up and started crying. "I don't know. I don't know why I went out there." Her grandmother went to that spot behind the house. She dug. And she found a small clay jar wrapped in cloth, tied with red thread. Inside the jar was hair. And a photo of Hira and Bilal together. The grandmother didn't even bring it inside. She took it straight to an older woman in the village, someone known for removing these things. That woman took one look at it and said, "This is not to separate. This is to replace." Hira's mother asked what that meant. The woman said, "Someone wants to sit in her place." The wedding still went on, because the family didn't want scandal. In places like that, canceling a wedding can destroy reputations. So they went ahead, even though Hira looked pale and scared, like she was walking into something she couldn't escape. The ceremony started in the evening. The lights were up. The music played. Guests laughed. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then the power cut out. Everything went black. The music stopped mid-note. People murmured, annoyed. Someone said, "It'll come back." In the darkness, a smell spread through the crowd. Rotten and sweet. Like decaying flowers. Then someone screamed. The power flickered back on. And there, in the center of the wedding tent, Hera stood completely still. Her bridal veil was off. Her hair was loose. And woven through it, like a braid, was red thread. So much red thread that it looked like blood woven into her hair. Her eyes were wide and empty. Bilal stepped toward her, confused. "Hera?" Hera's mouth moved. But the voice that came out didn't sound like her. It was lower. Colder. And it said clearly, "He's not yours." The guests fell silent. You could hear people's breathing. Bilal laughed nervously, like he thought it was some kind of breakdown. "What are you saying?" Hera smiled. And then she lifted her hands slowly. In her palm was a small object. A ring. Not her wedding ring. A different ring. Farah's ring. People recognized it because Farah used to show it off in town. Hera's grandmother screamed, "Don't let her touch him!" But it was too late. Hera stepped forward fast, like something pulled her. She grabbed Bilal's hand and forced the ring onto his finger. Bilal tried to pull away, but he froze. His face went blank. Then his nose started bleeding. Dark blood. He swayed, eyes rolling. People rushed forward. Hera just stood there, smiling, watching. Bilal collapsed. Someone shouted for water. Someone screamed to call an ambulance. But the ambulance was far, and the roads were bad. Bilal's breathing became shallow, then stopped. Right there. At his own wedding. In front of everyone. Panic exploded. Women cried. Men shouted. Kids screamed. Hera's mother tried to grab Hera, shaking her, yelling her name. But Hera didn't react. She looked down at Bilal's body and whispered, softly, almost lovingly, "Now it's finished." Then Hera turned her head toward the crowd and locked eyes with Farah. Because Farah was there. Standing near the back, half hidden. Smiling. Farah raised her hand and wiggled her fingers like a small wave. Hera's grandmother started toward Farah, but Farah slipped away into the crowd and disappeared. Hera collapsed a few minutes later. She woke up in the house screaming, ripping at her hair, saying something was crawling under her scalp. When they tried to calm her, she kept whispering, "I didn't do it! I didn't do it!" Bilal was buried the next day. The wedding tent was taken down. The decorations were thrown away like they were cursed. And the village stayed quiet for a while. But it didn't end there. A week after the funeral, Farah died. They found her in her room, on her bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Her hair had been cut off in chunks, like someone had hacked at it. And on her bedside table was a small clay jar, wrapped in cloth, tied with red thread. Inside was a photo. Farah and Bilal. But the faces were scratched out. Both of them. And beneath the photo was a note, written in shaky ink. "You can sit in her place." Hera never fully recovered. She got quieter after that. She stopped smiling. She stopped going outside. And sometimes, late at night, her sister would hear her whispering through the wall. Not praying. Not crying. Just whispering, steady and calm, like she was reading something out loud. And every so often, Hira's sister would find red thread in strange places. Under the front door. In the kitchen sink. Woven into Hira's hair, even after it had been cut short. Like something still wanted to braid her into a story that wasn't finished. So, these were the stories sent by our subscribers. Which story scared you the most? If you want to send your story for narration, do send at belladarktales@gmail.com. Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.